Hey guys, it's Nik the Booksmith. Welcome back, welcome back. Sorry, it's been a minute. I was sick and kind of out of commission for an entire week. And I'm feeling better, but you know how it is. You just get like tired really fast and your brain doesn't function well. I'm still in that state, so please forgive any faux pas or misstatements or general haphazardry, because that's going to happen today. Okay, so last time we were together, I did a little bit of eco-printing, botanical printing, nature printing, whatever you want to call it. And I promised I would show you the results. So I'm here to show you the results. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the different processes that I have done, in experimenting to see what works well for me and for the plants I have in my local area. And wherever you live, it's going to be a little bit different due to soil and rainfall and, well, you know how it is. And the different varieties of plants that you can use will also yield different results in different areas of the country. I recommend researching and reading all about different types of methods that are used around the world to get good results with the botanical prints. However, this is one of those instances where it's going to take a little bit of experimentation on an individual level. Because of those different variables I mentioned before with soil, rainfall, that kind of thing, things are going to be shifted a little bit from area to area. There are some excellent resources out there, such as the Grandmaster Poobah of all botanical printing, which would be India Flint. And her books are widely available. Also, Irit Dulman, and I don't know if I'm saying her name properly, so please forgive if I am not, but she is amazing. Her artwork is just beyond words. But they live in other parts of the world, so their results are going to be different from what I can get in my part of the world. That being said, I did write down the different things that I did with these prints, so that perhaps it will help you in your own experimentation and your own working out of methods if you wanted to try this. Sound good? There are lists online that you can do a quick Google search for that tell you the different kinds of plant material that will print more dependably than others. You can print with almost anything, but some things that don't have the right chemical makeup, it's more where you have to do like a resist print, like the shape will show up, but the plant itself isn't going to be leaching out any dyes or chemicals that will imprint on the paper. It'll be more like when you put your hand on a piece of paper and then you spray paint over the top of it. You take your hand away and then there's the imprint of your hand. Some things will leave an imprint and then some things will be used as a resist for negative space. I'll stop with all the technical mumbo jumbo and I'll tell you what I did. There's different batches stacked together here. So this first batch, this paper is mixed media paper just from an inexpensive pad of paper that I got at a local art store. So nothing expensive. It's not thick like watercolor paper. It's probably 100 pound, I'm thinking. These papers were soaked for a few minutes in a solution of just tepid water with some vinegar added to it. And I think it was approximately 75% water and 25% vinegar, or even less vinegar. It was a couple of glugs. I'm not going to pretend like I measured because I didn't. But if I had to guess, it was probably like 5 cups of water to a cup of vinegar. So that doesn't match my 75-25, does it? Math was never my strong suit. And then the plant material was in a tub of water, And I had added some, like a couple of black tea bags, like just the regular, not herbal tea, but black tea. And I soaked those, I don't know, I did that first and I just let those soak while I got everything else together. So it probably sat for, I don't know, over an hour. Depending on your plant material, soaking it longer or shorter has the potential to yield different results as well. Then I simmered them after the paper and the plant material was stacked, you know, back and forth, back and forth. I sandwiched it together between aluminum plates and tied it all together nice and tight so that the paper and the plant material had good contact. Where it's not all loosey-goosey, because that's not going to help you. You need to have it nice and firm. And you can tie it with string. I think I used bulldog clips. Something like this, where it kind of clamps the whole thing together, nice and snug, and it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. These were oak leaves, and I can't remember the variety of oak, so that's not going to help you at all. And then the backside didn't do a whole lot, but I like the muted. I don't know. I think they're all beautiful because I like just the hints of the leaves as well as the darker ones. You might see the orange along the edge. In the water, I had put in a couple of rusty pieces of metal, just junk metal. I simmered this for about an hour and a half, I think, before I took it out and then just let it drain off. But the orange is from the rusty bits in the water seeping in. These are maples, as you can see, some really big maple leaves and then some smaller ones. The bottom side of the leaf with the veins usually gives off more of a print than the top side. Depending on how you lay your plant material, it's going to come out differently. These were some wild geranium leaves, and they always do real well. These leaves are from a buckeye tree, an Ohio buckeye, and they always print beautifully. They're even like an olivey green. They're my favorite, and I have one here locally in a park. So here is the second batch. And with the second batch, these papers were dipped in a solution of warm water with alum. There are different forms of alum, but usually you can find, potassium aluminum sulfate, I believe, is the food safe one. And that's what they use for pickles, for making pickles. It's cheaper to buy it on like Amazon in bulk. If you go get the little tiny thing of McCormick's alum that they sell in the spices at the grocery store, you're going to pay a lot of money for like 2 tablespoons of alum. Don't do that. Either order a pound or whatever off of Amazon. If you have a health food store or a food co-op, that's where I got my first package of alum, and you can go, it's in bulk, and you can go there and buy as much as you want, and it's really inexpensive, like really inexpensive. So why McCormick's needs to charge so much money for 2 ounces is beyond me. But anyway, I'm not here to dog on McCormick's. So these papers were dipped in that solution, and I just mixed, again, 4 or 5 cups of warm water with, it was a couple of tablespoons of alum, but I made sure it was all dissolved. And you don't have to soak them. I just kind of dipped them in there and made sure that they were saturated. That's all I did. And then the plants, the leaves, were in another tub, but I didn't use the water with the tea in it. I used some rusty water that was left over from when I was boiling another batch. Because I put rusty bits in the water when I was simmering the paper, I saved that water and I soaked the plant material in that rusty water. And then again, everything was sandwiched together, paper plants, squished together real well, simmered in water for about an hour and a half, or give or take. And then I drained them off. It was late and I was really tired and didn't want to unbundle. I just took a piece of plastic from some packaging and I wrapped it around the bundle without untying it or unclipping it, I just wrapped it up in the plastic and turned it over and put it like in a tub so that it wouldn't leak anything, just to keep it wet so that the edges wouldn't dry and curl up or something crazy. And I just left it until morning. I don't think it makes too much difference as far as the print goes for me, but for you and where you live and with your plant material, maybe it would. So all I can say is try it out. These were a lot of maples. Maples do pretty well. This is one of my favorite prints. Some really, really big oak leaves. And this is my neighbor's oak tree. Isn't that pretty? There's some more maples. These are viburnum, because we have a huge viburnum, actually 2 of them, real close to me in a park, and some maple leaves. And look at the back. The back of it almost looks like, you know that, what's that app where you can make a picture look like a watercolor or an oil painting? That's what it looks like. These are smoke bush, but I was able to go get some last year. These were from the freezer. I had some leaves that I had collected, and if I don't use them right then in a project, I separate them into what they are, into packages, and I put them in the freezer because they work just fine from frozen. And there's some more viburnum and oaks. This is some fern, and it's hard to see because it didn't really leave a print. It did more of that resist thing that I talked about earlier. And basically the rusty bits in the water, that iron that floats around in the water, reacts to the mordanted paper, and it just creates those little edges and fine lines. And then that's the back. And that was those great big oak leaves that I had showed you. Kind of made a really cool watercolor effect on the back of that too. These were from a pear tree. They didn't leave a whole lot of pigment behind, but they're still pretty. You can still see the leaf shapes. I still think it looks kind of cool. It's nice to have, especially if you're going to be making a book or something like that, it's nice to have a variety of paper that is darkly printed and then some that is not so darkly printed. Okay, I'm going to set these aside. We'll talk about these. So these were done the same way that the first batch was done, where I soaked the papers in water and vinegar, and then the plants were in the water with the black tea. Except you see that it's kind of green. I don't know how well that's showing up on camera. I had some powdered, just commercial fabric dye. And I probably used the liquid stuff too. But anyway, I sprinkled some in the water. Once it got simmering, I just kind of sprinkled some in there. That dye leached in through. And do I love it? I mean, it's okay. It's not the color of green I would have loved for it to be. I don't know. It's a lot greener in person, I think, than it's showing up on camera. It's kind of a spring green, when I would prefer more of an olivey drab, khaki, maybe green. However, still pretty cool. Some of the plants that don't normally leave any pigment, that dye in the water really helps to create an impression around those leaves that are smashed in between. So I will show you some other examples here in just a second. These were just some rose leaves from some of my roses, the Ohio Buckeye, and these are from my peony bushes. I have a couple of those. Those are roses, and some of them turned out kind of cool. The way the colors kind of leach. There's some maples, more oak. There's those wild geraniums again. I don't know, they're always a pretty good performer as far as that goes. Both impressions did real well. All right, so some others that I did with some dye in the water were these little half sheets. This dye is kind of a purpley brown color. Of course, that's fern, which doesn't always leave too much of an impression. Depending on, I heard some ferns really do, but the ferns I've used don't leave too much pigment behind, but they do a great job at resist. So these are kind of great. The Buckeye leaves a lot of like golden tones, but that dye really leached in, because when you get that water simmering, I bring it up to a boil and then I turn it down so that it's just not like a rolling crazy boil, but just kind of a, you know, bubbly, but real low. Then that forces whatever's in the water around it in between the paper. I don't know, you never know where the dye is going to end up. There's some oak leaves, and there's the other side of those ferns. So that was that browny purple. This was more of a burgundy kind of, I would say. There's an oak leaf. I think that was smoke bush, Ohio Buckeye by Burnham. So you can see how some of them left a lot of pigment. These were maples, and they left a lot of pigment, but that dye kind of added some neat, I don't know, effects to it. So don't be afraid to experiment a little bit. There's some fern. That turned out pretty well. But that one left a lot of color. And then this was, I mean, obviously a blue, a greenish blue. And I thought these turned out kind of cool. I'm a huge lover of anything fern. This was, I think, a little piece of paper that was stuck in between. And I love how there must have been more pressure here and then less pressure out here, and it made a little bit of a frame. Oh, it's just kind of cool. So even the ones that don't come out, you know, perfect are still kind of cool. So some of the stuff that I did was I made some gift cards out of them. And what I was able to do was just like with these half sheets, you can score them in half. But before I did that, I would run it through the laser printer and have the laser printer print just in black something at the bottom or wherever you want to have it printed. And then I put it through my laminator with the reactive foil, you know, made for the heat, and did a little bit of a gold. I'll leave a link below to different types of foiling that you can do on things. So here is another one. Either you can write on the inside with a good black felt tip pen, or you could write on a different piece of paper and use some double-sided tape to, you know, just tape the top edge or something so they can lift it up and see underneath it. Or just leave a note stuck in the middle if you didn't want to attach anything to the actual card itself. So pretty. I did do a piece of fabric. This is a whole other monster. Just like, this is a total, yeah. So there are some things that are the same with paper and some things that are not. There is a lot more work involved with getting an image on fabric. But this, I used some Virginia creeper and some Boston fern. You might be able to see the Virginia creeper vine here and here, and then the fern. And it almost has, in some of the areas, it almost looks kind of batik a little bit. But I think that turned out kind of pretty. Be great for a journal cover. But anyway, that was my experiments in the botanical printing on paper. I hope this discussion helped you in, I don't know, maybe figuring some things out with your own botanical printing if you've gotten stuck anywhere. Sometimes it's just a matter of researching what in your area is going to work well with tannins and making sure that you have some kind of a mordant that you've either treated your paper with, which is the optimum thing, or at least it's in the water when you simmer it so that it mordants at the same time as you simmer. It's always best if you can just mordant your paper as you're doing it. Vinegar is not a mordant, but with paper prints fairly easily. It's not like fabric where you have to have a lot of other things done to it, but paper can usually take an impression. Something about the vinegar helps to release the tannins sometimes in the plant material and lets it stick to the paper. Like I said, I am not a chemist. It is Greek to me most of the time. All right, kids. I hope you enjoyed this video and the different methods that I use to get some botanical prints. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope everybody is having an excellent week, and I will see you all really, really soon in the next video. Bye, guys.